Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports Weekend Edition, Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKidEddie. Once again, that's SidKidEddie. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter and at Keita_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming for more media by first going to our website at weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And by listening to our podcast, you can simply search for War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. We'll spell it out for you, WARR on Anchor. We're also on the Tube, a.k.a. YouTube, at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing. In advance, thank you for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your buddies.
And don't forget, we are unapologetically fun.
Yes, we are.
I kind of like the sound of that. Well, let's go with that as our thing. How about that? That's what we do anyway, right?
Which we are. We are unapologetically cheerful and fun. That's what we are.
Exactly. Lakeena, let's start off this weekend edition. The world of football never seems to amaze us. We talked about this a little bit before we got started. It's going to involve the Bears, but we'll tie them into this conversation in a few minutes. Well, we might as well start now.
Yeah, might as well.
We're going to call the segment still in the topic from Chicago Sports Radio. Listening to one of the competing stations here in town, one of the hosts asked the co-host about the Bears quarterback situation. We ran down the list for you guys a couple of weeks ago about the free agency quarterbacks. We won't do it again. If you missed it, you can look it up yourself or look up the episode in which we did that. Of course, the people thought that the Bears were going the sweepstakes on Deshaun Watson. Apparently, that's not happening now. We'll get to Russell Wilson later. I know somebody brought that up. Like I said, we'll get to that later. Of course, you got the Carson Wentz rumors that came out over last weekend. Apparently, he's still out there for the moment, even though technically he's under contract with Philadelphia. But one of the hosts of a popular afternoon show here in Chicago brought up that he wouldn't mind seeing Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. He's a free agent quarterback. He played with the Miami Dolphins for the last couple of years. He shared time with Tua Tagovailoa this past season. He was with Tampa Bay in 2018, got out to that historic hot start before he flamed out. And so I got why this host wanted Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Bears, because we all know that the Bears are trying to go for it now. We all know about Ryan Pace's contract is up by this time next year. Matt Nagy, his job is on the line too, even though he has 2 years left on his contract, including next season. And so I'm thinking about this. I said, I get the logic behind it, Lakeena, but I'm going to need a lot of Musa on this one, okay? Musa. I understand Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's made a lot of money as a starting quarterback throughout his career. This is not what this is about. If you want the Bears to get off to a hot start like they did last year at 5-1, even though they often stunk up the joint, okay, that makes sense. But if you look at the history of Ryan Fitzpatrick, he gets off to hot starts, or if he comes in for somebody because they're injured or underperforming or what have you, he gets off to a hot start, which lasts a couple of games. But for the long haul, maybe I'll give you 2015 over the Jets. We'll give you his numbers just a moment. But maybe outside 2015 with the New York Jets, he's flamed out. So I get the idea of bringing him in for 1 year, getting the ship right for the Chicago Bears. But really looking at it deeper, it's not a good idea. I do not want Ryan Fitzpatrick here.
Well, and also, too, he's way over 30. I think he's like 35 or 36. I'll look up his age right quick. But, I mean, look, he could be serviceable. He could be a mentor to whoever, the Bears get. I'm sure the Bears are going to draft a quarterback, maybe later on in the round. He's 38, by the way. Ryan.
Okay.
And I just think that you get desperate. I think they're in desperation mode because of everything that happened. They transpired, all the mistakes that they've made. So to say that he's been serviceable, but like you said, Sid, he has a couple, 2 or 3 good games and he flames out. So could he maybe be a mentor for somebody? I guess that's their logic. But at the same time, though, we know that Fitzpatrick's not going to be your long-term answer. You're making it for cheap. That's probably the logic here too. But I just don't see him being a fit for this system. And I think a lot of Bears fans would go bananas if Fitzpatrick would come to the Bears. I mean, I'm sure he's going to have his, prospective suitors, but I just don't see him being a fit here. I just don't.
Take a look at Ryan Fitzpatrick's numbers from this past season with the Miami Dolphins. He played in 9 games, completed 68.5% of his passes, threw 13 touchdowns, threw for 8 interceptions. Lakeena, I think for the short term, you can keep your head above water with him. But as I mentioned, in long-term plans, he is not in your plans as far as a member of the Chicago Bears. I understand if Ryan Pace drafted a young quarterback and then brought him in, okay, that makes sense. But if you named him your starter from day one, that doesn't make any sense, especially given on the other side of the ball, which we'll dive into a little bit, that this defense is getting older, and you don't need another old guy on the other side of the ball that then you can just catch magic on. I just don't see it.
I just don't see it either, and I just think that we're kind of in desperation mode here, and I think I don't like I said, I don't think he'd be a good fit in this offense, this particular offense. We know the jet sweeps, we know that maybe wildcat and all those type of things. So flea flickers and all that, but I just don't see it, and I kind of feel like this is sort of a desperation. This will be a desperation move by the Bears. It all depends on what they're going to be next year. You already got guys, especially what we'll talk about, on the defense in a little bit. But you've got guys that are near or are over 30. Ryan is 38. Does he really want all of that? Guys over 30. That's never a good sign if you're in the NFL.
It's not, but if that person can find a job somewhere and someone's going to pay them. More power to them. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Browns. We talk Chicago Bears and the NFL for this segment. Getting back to Ryan Fitzpatrick's numbers, Lakeena, I brought them up here at 2015. Of course, the Jets missed the playoffs by 1 game. Of course, former Bear Matt Forte was on this team as well. Ryan Fitzpatrick played in all 16 games, through 31 touchdown passes, through 15 interceptions, but that following year, he only played in 14 games, threw for 12 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. And then, of course, in 2018 with Tampa, 12 interceptions, 17 touchdowns. Remember, during that year in 2018, he got up to that historic start of passing for 400 yards in each of his first 3 starts. But, of course, he fizzled out once Jameis Winston came back from that suspension. So this – to me, Lakeena, it shows some inconsistency here. Now, I'll bring up another example. Of course, in 2019, he was with the Dolphins, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. And, of course, I read the stats off to you from this past season, 2020, 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He was splitting time with Tua. This is a bridge guy, a stopgap, but long-term plans, no. If you're going to tell me that Ryan Pace is going to draft a stud quarterback, and if you brought him in, okay, I get it. But if you're going to have him, and I assume Nick Foles, who's under contract for next year for the Bears as the only quarterback on the roster right now, if you're going to tell me right now it's those 2 old guys, I know Nick Foles is not that old yet, but he's getting up there. If you're going to tell me those are the 2 guys you're going to roll with going to training camp in Hallis Hall in July of 2021, no, thank you.
No, it's definitely and you really don't know what the direction the Bears are going to go in. I mean, are they going to perhaps try and maybe compete again for the division, next year, or are they going to, plan on rebuilding. So if you're Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're probably going to want to go someplace where if you may not necessarily get a chance at the starting job, but do you want to go to maybe a contender? Do you want to go someplace where you can be a mentor? Because that's who he was, last season. So be kind of being a mentor to Tua. So, maybe he wants to go somewhere where he can win. So I don't know what his mindset is, but look, he's made a lot of money. I wouldn't be, not to say that he might actually retire, but I'm sure he'll have his suitors. I'm sure there's going to be guys that are going to want to teams that are going to want to vie for his services.
Before we go to the defensive side of the ball for the Bears, Lakeena, did you check out the tweet from David Montgomery from Thursday? I'll let you have the first word on that. Him and Tariq Cohen are following the same playbook. Of course, referring to Tariq Cohen real quick, Lakeena, just give our audience an update. The Carson Wentz rumors came out last weekend before the Super Bowl. Of course, Tariq Cohen was, his name was mentioned in the trade rumors. He came out on Saturday night via the Twitter and said that Chicago fans is all good. I called my GM, I called my agent, called my coach. We're all good. I'm going to be a member of Chicago Bears. David Montgomery, this past Thursday, I like David Montgomery personally. I think he fits this Bears offense. He's been the only productive guy these last couple of years on offense. Next to wide receiver, free agent to be Allen Robinson. But David Montgomery, he had Bears Twitter upset. I'll give you the floor, Lakeena.
Yeah, he basically said he deleted the tweet. I've been trying to get on my phone, but he deleted it. He said, look, I enjoy using past tense. I enjoyed my time in Chicago. I met some really great people, yada, yada, yada. But I guess, people, and myself included, were like, well, wait, what are you trying to say here, David? Are you trying to say? Because, of course, there have been various names being thrown around of a potential trade, for Carson Wentz, to the Bears. But he quickly said, look, you guys are, took it out of context. I wasn't trying to say that. I'm just saying some people would say that it was just a reflective tweet, Some people say he was trolling, but look, that's not his personality. So he's not the kind of guy that would do that. I mean, but considering all the rumors, and everything, so I can kind of see why I think a lot of Bears fans would sort of interpret that as saying, what are you trying to tell us? Because it's been quiet in that front. But I don't know. I mean, I guess the talks have kind of died down a bit, since all this stuff started happening last weekend. But, that doesn't mean that no trade is going to happen. We'll get to all that in a little bit. But, look, like I said, the Bears are in desperation mode. You're going to hear, names like Ryan Fitzpatrick. You're hearing names like Carson Wentz, maybe Tyrod Taylor, or Derek Carr. That's a name that's being floated around too. For the Bears. So there's going to be all types of names that are going to be floating around. Now, will the Bears get any one of those guys? That's still up in the air. But this is sort of what's making Bears fans sort of, kind of like all over the place.
I was talking with a buddy of mine outside of here at my other gig, at my 9-to-5 gig, and I asked him, should the Bears move on from the Carson Wentz sweepstakes? Who do you think they're going to get? He didn't know, kind of like you, so like they're all over the place. So he's a little bit older than me, but he falls in the perimeters of we know what the McCaskies do. So, and I said I wouldn't mind having Derek Carr on the Bears. Now, will the Bears be smart enough to do that, i.e. Ryan Pace? I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears picked up someone of a lesser caliber who can bring in on the cheap and they think they can skip by. Now, if they strike out on this Carson Wentz fiasco, it wouldn't take that much to get Derek Carr because John Gruden has a love-hate relationship with him. You do not have to give up the house for Derek Carr. I think he could work here, but if the Bears don't go in that direction, it's going to get ugly. And I told my guy, I think that Derek Carr would make more sense. We discussed on the show, Lakeena, for the last couple of episodes that we know why Carson Wentz is linked here because of John DeFilippo, head coach Matt Nagy. Of course, Nagy worked with Doug Peterson in Philadelphia and in Kansas City before he took the head coaching job here. So I give those connections regarding Wentz, but Derek Carr, I think, would work here. Now, you don't have to give up the house like I mentioned, but if the Bears don't look it in Derek Carr's way, you really don't have much to choose from.
The piggies are slim, as we've said,
Mm-hmm.
said a couple of podcasts ago. So, I think Derek Carr is not a lost cause. I think he definitely could be salvageable in the right team with the right team in the right system. Like you said, we may have to give up maybe a fourth rounder, maybe a third rounder, probably at the highest. You're not going to get a first or second rounder for Derek Carr. That's just not that's just not feasible. So, I think Derek Carr is probably the best case for the Bears. But again, you never know what Ryan Pace is thinking. So I don't know what's he gonna do. But like we've been saying, the pickies are very slim. When it comes to quarterback and free agency. So if Wentz ends up coming to the Bears, I'm sure a lot of Bears fans are not gonna be very happy about it. But I think if you're a Bears fan, if you have to choose between those names that we mentioned, I think maybe Derek Carr is probably your best bet. And like we've been saying, he probably would have to you probably get him at a bargain. He doesn't have a lot of money still. I think he's still playing his rookie money, or maybe his contract's not that much, so it won't be that big of a
right, because he signed an extension a couple years ago.
But it wasn't for a lot of money, so
you're right.
So I'm thinking that he's a very practical and more manageable.
And also too, Lakeena, about the Bears quarterback situation. And I said this a couple weeks ago. This is what happens when you pass up on the two better options. And Ryan Pace has egg on his face, and he's trying to wipe it off by doing the best deal. But real quick before we move on to the other side of the ball, I was listening to some Philadelphia sports radio from earlier this week, and they were talking. I think most of the fans that called up into these a couple of shows that I listened to, they think that Carson Wentz is a foregone conclusion that he's out of there. Do you think that there's maybe a third or fourth team involved in the Carson Wentz sweepstakes? Because we hear the Chicago Bears, we hear about the Indianapolis Colts. Do you think there's a third or fourth or maybe a fifth team involved that no one's talking about? I'll tell you what this whole said after I get your answer.
Oh gosh, there's could there be a third team? I mean, for Wentz, maybe Philly, maybe. Not Philly. Miami, maybe. Maybe they could be another team, a wild card team that we're not hearing too much about. Maybe Dallas, because it seems like they don't know what to do with Dak Prescott. They still can't figure that out. I'm trying to think who else. Gosh. I don't think there is another team. We know about the Colts. We know about the Bears, of course. I'm trying to think. Like, I can't see any other team, going to any other team other than those two. Now, could there be another team? Maybe Carolina. That's another name that's being floated around too, perhaps. But I don't know. What about you?
There could be another team floating around that we're not hearing about. I just don't know who it is personally. I'm not saying it's not out of the question, but I don't have a strong sense on this personally. But this radio host from Philly said he could see two possible teams that no one's talking about that could pick up Wentz: Denver and New England. And I said New England makes more sense than Denver. I know Denver is locked in with Drew Lock, no pun intended, but I don't know what Denver's cap situation is. I don't know how much they could give up to get Wentz. So I know Vic Fangio, former Bears defensive coordinator, now going into his third year next season as head coach. I know in your third year you have to win or else you're going to lose your job. So from that aspect, I get it, but I just don't see Wentz in Denver. I don't. Yeah, you got a couple of good, young, talented wide receivers and Jordy Judy. I just don't see it. Now, New England, I can see. Remember, Bill Belichick kept everybody sleeping. Oh, Jerry Stidham. Of course, what happened in June of last season, picked up Cam Newton for 1 year. Now, Carson Wentz is different because he's still technically on the contract. If you study the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick, even though he's not the official GM, he has a lot of say as far as player personnel. And the New England Patriots manage their cap situations very well. I can see Carson Wentz perhaps playing for New England. But If New England think they're going to give up the house or cave into the Eagles' front office demands of 2 first-round picks, that's not happening. Bill Belichick, he may be old, but he's not stupid.
Well, so is Bob Kraft too, and you can say that the same thing with him. I mean, he's not crazy. I don't look. I think Chris Ballard came out, who's the Colts GM. He came out and said that he's not giving up.
He's
not giving up two first-round picks. I'm sure the Bears are going to give up 2 first-round picks, but maybe they will because these are the Bears. But these are the Bears, but
they need a tackle in the first round, so don't say that too loud.
Well, I'm trying not to, but you know how they are. But look, I mean, I think New England would be a good fit for him, but you don't know who he's going to throw it to. Edelman is on the other side of 30. They really don't have nobody else in the receiving core for New England, and so I just don't. Although it will be a very New England move for him to perhaps maybe do that, but not at the price that the Eagles are asking for. They're not doing it.
Yeah, real quick before we get to the defense, I know I keep saying this, but going back to the Derek Carr, here's my other point. If you don't have to give up the house to get Derek Carr if you're in Chicago, you keep your first round pick. You know why? We just mentioned it. You need a tackle to protect your quarterback. Even though the reshuffled offensive line did well during the last month of the season to help them get into the playoffs, you still need a tackle. If you trade for Carson Wentz, you're not going to get that tackle. And I know that there have been rumors out there that they should trade for the Baltimore Ravens tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. I don't know. Again, the Bears had to give up their first-round pick, so be it, because you already have an experienced tackle. But you know as well as I do, Lakeena, players like that, offensive linemen, studs like that, don't come available like that often. They usually lie down long-term.
Yeah, excuse me. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, because we know that Gruden's not a big fan of Carr. So I can see him perhaps maybe, trading him at some point during the offseason. It's going to be very interesting, though, because like you said, I think the Bears are probably the best fit for him. But, New England maybe? I mean, I can see maybe if you're the Patriots, if you're looking for a quarterback, I mean, Derek Carr might be your best bets if you're New England. But then again, like I've been saying, who are you going to throw to? I mean, Edelman's on the other side of 30, and you don't know who else, the defense is going to look. I mean, yeah, they had a lot of those defensive guys who opted out this past season because of COVID, but they're going to be a year older now too. So
yeah, and don't forget they gave the big contract to now newly father Dante Hightower.
Yep. So that you may not have the money to do it. So I don't know. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a very interesting off season. Also, too, before we get to the defense, this is me here. Russell Wilson made some comments earlier this week, basically, showing his displeasure for the Seahawks not investing in a good O-line, because he's been sacked, I think, more times than any quarterback in the last 5 or 6 years. So I'm if you're, I don't think they're going to trade him. I know some people were kind of like in their little deer in the headlights that they may trade him, but I don't think Seattle is not dumb. They're not going to do that now. I'm thinking that maybe they're going to try to maybe invest in an O-line. So what do you think about that situation?
Okay, for our Chicago viewers and listeners, listen to me very carefully. Russell Wilson is not coming here. If you cannot get Deshaun Watson, how in the hell are you going to think you'll get Russell Wilson? Stop. Don't even think about trading for him. He's not coming here. Thank you.
Well, very good. And you probably have to give up a lot to get him. And like I said, I doubt they're gonna. John Snyder, who's a GM there for the Seahawks, he's not gonna do that. Now, I'm thinking that. Look, I don't know if he's angling for a trade. Some people are saying that maybe his wife Sierra might be the one that's trying to, coax him into asking for a trade. But I mean, he's not going anywhere. He's the face of that franchise, and look, they better invest in the O-line because if what happened next season didn't happen the last few years, he is gonna be asking for a trade.
If anything that you guys have noticed or you haven't noticed, you better take notice right now. At least for this past decade, maybe decade and a half, Lakeena, what have you noticed what's the combination for all the Super Bowl winning teams? maybe outside of Tampa Bay, because they paid Brady 25 per year for 2 years to quarterback their team. What have you noticed with the quarterbacks, with the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks for the past 10, 15 years?
The past 10 years. How far are we going back? Are we going back to?
Yeah, for the last at least 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. Oh.
Whether they won or lost, what do you notice about the quarterbacks that played in the Super Bowl?
Are we talking like not getting sacked or?
No. I'll give out the answer. Most of the quarterbacks, especially the young quarterbacks that played in the Super Bowl over the past decade, including Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, and some of the other young quarterbacks, they were on their rookie deals.
Yep.
If you want to win a Super Bowl in this salary cap era, even though the price tag keeps going up for quarterbacks, you better win with a rookie quarterback and veterans that you're paying. And you got to invest in the offensive line, because once your quarterback gets paid, your offensive line suffers and your defensive line suffers. And that's what happened. That's what's been happening with Seattle. You saw what happened with San Francisco before they went to the Super Bowl. Now, a couple years ago, you saw what happened with Colin Kaepernick. You know, that defense got old. They got injured, started losing games, and they had to rebuild the thing. Same thing with Seattle. The difference is with Seattle, Russell Wilson was young enough, and they had a few playmakers on offense to keep that going, because they weren't supposed to make the playoffs the last couple of years because the Legion of Boom was getting old and they had to release and cut guys. So if you notice that the business model to win the NFL, listen to me closely, you got to win with a quarterback who's under his rookie deal. And you got to invest in the offensive line first and the defensive line second. Once your quarterback gets paid, it's over. You're not going to invest in a great defensive line. You're definitely not going to invest in the offensive line, not through free agency. If you want your core players, especially on the offensive line, to develop, you're going to have to draft them, and that takes at least 2 to 3 years. And let me give you another example. Look what's happening with Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, as soon as he got paid, you know, the Packers haven't brought in an impactful free agent since when? Think about it, folks. Yeah.
It's been a while, and look, we'll get to maybe someone who probably changed some of that, but and like you said, Sid, I mean, yes, you know, the rookie deals and, you know, the O-line, and look, that O-line for the Seahawks is terrible. So I think people need to kind of, you know, sort of, I think Seattle has a lot to think about. I'm sure the Pete Carroll said that he's been in touch with Wilson, so he's going to try and he's going to, you know, try and maybe talk it out and see, you know, Gabe Russell's input on what to do. Do they have the money to get a free agent O-line guy? But, you know, hopefully they can work that out, because like I already saw Bears fans, and you know this, because we follow the same people on Twitter. I saw a lot of Bears fans. Hey, Russell Wilson come to Chicago. Ooh, that might be interesting. Guys, stop.
Stop!
It's not happening. So we're gonna squash your dreams right there. It's not happening. and look, you know, the Bears online is not that good either. I mean, yeah, they got better, but look, they had their they still have their issues. So let's slow down on all that.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. As we moosa through this segment, as we're still talking about the National Football League. Now let's finally get to the defense, Lakeena, and this will tie into the Chicago Bears. J.J. Watt, the 10-year veteran of the Houston Texans. Of course, if you guys saw this on TV or online, during their last game of the season against the Tennessee Titans, he told Deshaun Watson that he apologized to him for not getting him a Super Bowl during his prime years. Now, J.J. Watt has been announced on Friday. It was announced on Friday that J.J. Watt and the Houston Texans will part ways. That means J.J. Watt will be cut and will become a free agent. Now it starts again, Lakeena, but I think this will make a lot of sense. I kind of felt this way for the past few weeks. J.J. Watt is on the other side of his career. He is still very good, but he's been injury prone for the last 4 or 5 years. I know Bears fans going to stir it up. Him and Khalil Mack, they could work together. Remember, Khalil Mack is still dealing with some knee issues too. I know some folks don't want you to let you know that, but we're here to tell you. But I see J.J. Watt going to a better team like Minnesota or Green Bay or maybe the Rams or some veteran team, maybe the Cowboys to help them win a championship. That's where J.J. Watt is in the terms of his career. Now, coming here to Chicago, it makes sense on paper, but again, are you going to trust him? Even let's just say he was a situational pass rusher. Do you trust him to do that and stay healthy for 16 games?
Well, and all
I don't know. I'm just shaking my head.
well, Kalea Ohai, who is a top soccer player, who she plays for the Chicago Red Stars, who's a terrific soccer player. I see where people are saying in that connection, like, oh, maybe he wants to be in Chicago, to be near his wife, and this and that. But let's remember too. I mean, like you said, Sid. I mean, you got Khalil Mack, who's 30, who's the same age as J.J. Watt, the 32. Well, he'll be 32. Well, J.J. will be 32 next month. Khalil is just turned 31. You got Robert Quinn, who's 29, who's 30, who will be 30 this year. So plus you've got pass rushers. Eddie Goldman I'm sure he'll be back after opting out last season. Mm-hmm. So that you're kind of the Bears are already kind of stacked in the pass rushing front, and plus you're not going to have the money. You're not going to have the money to pay him. I'm sure he'll probably take less, but probably not that much less. I mean, look,
exactly.
And I know Pittsburgh, that's where his brother Derek plays. He's making he's making a name for himself in his own right. That might be a good spot for him. You said Green Bay. Look like there's another pass rush down there in Green Bay. Up there in Green Bay, I should say. Maybe the Patriots, but again, you're going to be in that same, that same.
Yeah, they in transition mode too, just like the Texans.
Yeah, they're basically going to be wiping the slate clean and start over. Dallas could be interesting because they need a pass rusher. I'm not, and I think you're the first person that has said something about the Rams, and I thought about that too when that came out because I'm sure Aaron Donald would love to have an extra guy beside him to kind of help him out in that pass rush. I mean, look, I'm sure. Look, they're contending. The Rams are, him, Matt Stafford. I mean, you got to think that they'll be one of the favorites next year for Super Bowl 56 in Los Angeles. Playing in their whole stadium like Tampa did last week. So there are a lot of places where J.J. Watt could fit, but again, I'm sure the Bears have been brought up. I'm sure, but you don't have. I don't know what his asking price is going to be, but you're not going to look. I'm sure he's not going to take a discount. Look, I'm sure he'll love to be near his wife, of course. But again, he's going to want to go to a contender. He's over 30 now. He's going to want to go to a contender, and the Packers, the Rams, the Steelers, those are contenders. The Bears are not. And New England, and I saw some people say New England, but they're kind of in transition mode. So I don't think they're going to be competing for the AFC East anytime or the Super Bowl anytime soon. So it'll be very interesting to see where this entails with Mr. Watt.
I have two outside teams that no one's talking about for Mr. Watt. I'm not saying either of these teams are going to get him, but I think they should be at least kicking the tires. San Francisco 49ers, I don't know where they are as far as that cap is concerned, but they're the stars that got hurt on defense. They'll be returning healthy next year. Also, the Washington football team. You don't think that with Philadelphia rebuilding, assuming they trade Carson Wentz, the Giants is still terrible. Dallas, even before Dak got hurt last year, their defense stunk, and you're the defending division champs. And you got a young defensive line that was one of the top 10 in the NFL this year.
And I thought about this too. Another team that's not being talked about. I don't know what their cap situation is, but how about Baltimore? Look, they could use an extra pass rush. I mean, one of their guys, I forgot which one was it, but I think he's asking for a trade. I think it was Ronnie Brown, if I'm not mistaken, or Ronald Stanley or something like that. I'll look that up, but. They could use extra pass rusher. Yeah,
now like I said, J.J. Watt will have options for him. As he and the Texans will part ways, and so Watt will hit free agency when the new league year starts in mid-March. Before we get out of this segment, Lakeena, let's talk some NFL business. Of course, as we talked about on the show, the TV deals were were coming up and up soon. It looks like the NFL, along with CBS, Fox, and NBC, their deals are good, so they'll stay with the NFL for the next several years. We don't know the terms of it yet because all their business is not taken care of. But at least those networks I just mentioned, they'll stay on with the NFL for a little bit longer. But the Thursday night package, which is currently owned by Fox, they still have 2 years left on that 5-year mega deal that they paid for a few years ago. And Amazon Prime is trying to steal that away from Fox and make it its own entity. But the problem is they need someone to produce it. I'll ask you, Lakeena. Do you think Fox will keep that relationship with the NFL as far as Thursday night football? They do well on Sunday afternoon games, obviously. But do you think that Fox, who will help Amazon Prime produce those games on Thursday nights? They're going to have a network do it. Is it Fox? Is it ESPN/ABC? As you talked about before, Lakeena, they're trying to get in that Super Bowl rotation. I don't know what's going to happen within his next contract. It looks like it will. We're not sure. But who's going to help Amazon out? Is it ABC/ESPN, Fox, CBS, who had the Thursday night package a decade ago now? Will it be NBC, who also had a Thursday night package a few years ago? So someone's going to have to help them out because they're not strong enough to produce those games on their own.
It'll be very interesting because from what I read, this from Jabari Young, the original book came from Jabari Young, who covers sports business for CNBC. Mm-hmm. He wrote that they actually wanted to get this thing done in December, right before Christmas, mm-hmm. But this is sort of the big sticking point. Who's going to do the Thursday night games because none of the other networks are kind of too keen on it. So I know CBS, they said, look, we don't want to be bothered with that package anymore. Look, we got some good shows on Thursdays, mm-hmm. Thursday nights, I should say. NBC, said the same thing. Fox, that their numbers are good, but there's some at the higher ups at Fox, are kind of mm-hmm. Leery on continuing with the Thursday night package beyond 2023. So mm-hmm. I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, look, if you're ESPN, you're going to you've been wanting to get back into the Super Bowl rotation. This might be the best way to do it. But if you're Amazon, look, you're probably going to have to be doing all the dueling services because, of course, they got ESPN Plus. ESPN does, and mm-hmm. they may simulcast on ABC too because I think that's the thing that they want to do with their Monday Night Football. Put it on ABC, mm-hmm. back on ABC. So. Look.
That means The Bachelor's gonna get bumped off.
Oh yeah. Look, it can wait. It can wait a few months. Yeah, we can wait a few months for The Bachelor. But yeah, look, it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens here because this is sort of like the one thing. Also, the terms too. 7-8 million, 8-year, I should say. There's some reports that they want to go up to 10, so that there could be a peace of mind. But you want to leave it mm-hmm. open so that you don't know what the future is going to be. But because also, Sunday Ticket's also still kind of, it's still mm-hmm. sort of up in the air as well. So those are sort of the two sticking points for, the media contracts. The NFL wants to have this done by the time the new league year starts, which is March 17th. Mm-hmm. So they want to make sure they get all this ironed out. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. If you're either one of the networks, do you want to sort of pay a little bit of money and take a chance and sort of get some of that revenue and you can put on your streaming services too. And again, in addition to Amazon, because Amazon, like you said, they don't have the capacity to produce an NFL game or sports games yet. So, or live sporting events, I should say yet. So mm-hmm. they're going to need a network partner. So, you wonder, okay, who's gonna bite on this? That's going to be the $1 million question or $1 billion question, as I should say.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I am, but I'm not surprised that Turner Sports didn't go in on this for Thursday Night Football. I'm sure that the NFL wants Thursday night on the broadcast network. If that's the case, which I assume it is, that's probably why Turner didn't go in on the NFL. Because for you younger folks out there, the NFL was on TNT back in the late 80s, early 90s, up until late 97, early 98, because they split the Sunday night package with ESPN.
Yep.
And so, and Turner did some good numbers, but ESPN won the day as far as paying for the whole package for Sunday Night Football. Of course, now Sunday Night Football is on NBC. But I'm surprised Turner didn't get in on the act as far as Thursday Night Football. But the NFL wants Thursday Night Football on the broadcast network. I can understand why Turner didn't get involved.
Yeah, I think that was what I hear. So hopefully, this will be ironed out by March, so that they want to, because they want to set the salary cap. So that's why they want to get this thing done. So I wonder which network's going to be coaxed into perhaps maybe doing Thursday Night Football, I should say again, because everything else is going to be status quo.
Yep, everything will be status quo. Lakeena, let's take a quick 20-second timeout. You thought it was heated in this segment. It's going to get even hotter next segment. We have to talk about the Chicago Bulls. We have to talk about college basketball, both locally and nationally. And we'll have a whole lot more other fun stuff to talk about as well. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Can I preview tonight's game? Welcome back to the second half of the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from War Media by simply going to War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure you type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. You can also go to our website at weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL.com for all your news and sports, culture, and other fun stuff. Go to that website. We definitely are kicking some major tail. And also, we're on YouTube at War Media, once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. Look alive! Thank you in advance. We appreciate your support.
Thank you. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we are unapologetically fun.
And cheerful.
So deal with it.
Yes, we are. So if you don't like all this cheeriness, then, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Moving on to some basketball on the pro level. Let's start locally, Lakeena. The Chicago Bulls, as of this recording, they are 10-14 on the season. As of this recording, I'm assuming most of you guys are listening to this on Saturday mornings, early Saturday afternoon. Friday's game against the Los Angeles Clippers has already been played. We'll break down that game on our next episode, which will be released on Tuesday. Let's review the two games that were played earlier this week, Lakeena. That's the loss to the Washington Wizards, 105-101. And this past Wednesday, Zion Williamson came into town, but the Bulls said, no, you're not leaving Chi-Town without a victory. The Bulls did bounce back, breaking their losing streak on Wednesday, defeating the New Orleans Pelicans 129-116. Lakeena, let's get a quick wrap-up from you from Monday's game. I know that all teams go through this. Even your bad teams go through bad stretches every once in a while against bad teams. But with all the injuries right now that the Bulls are having, we'll break it down in just a second. But with all that's been going on with the Chicago Bulls in the last couple of weeks or so, you lost to the Wizards.
Look, there's always going to be.
I didn't think I'll get this upset, but I'm sounding like our good friend of the show, Matt Pegg of Locked On Bulls podcast. Shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to him.
You lost to the Wizards, and Zach LaVine missed the easy-ass layup. Whether you got fouled or not, you don't miss those. Good grief. Good grief to me about being upset over nothing, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those shots where I'm sure Zach's probably still has nightmares about that. I mean, look, it was a bad loss, yes, but again, even in a 72-game short season, you're gonna have these kinds of, you're gonna have a couple of bad losses. That's just the nature of the beast. Now, again, LaVine had 35 points, and remember they were without various guys. I mean, he could have gotten a little bit more help. I mean, Coby White didn't have a good shooting performance there. Was 0 for 4 from 3, so 3 for 10 overall from the field. So it's look, you're gonna have games like this. It's okay. It's not. I'm not gonna freak out. Okay, you lost to the Wizards. Okay, yeah. Look, okay, it happens. Yes, Westbrook didn't play either. Okay, fine, whatever. But Beal did his thing. I mean, he had 35, and Hachimura had 19. I think that's a season high for him. So, but let's not. I'm not gonna like freak out. Oh my God, they lost to the Wizards. I mean, okay. Yeah. I know they beat like the previous 3 or 4 times they played, but again, you're gonna have a head scratcher. It's fine. Now, on the flip side, they had a nice little bounce back game against the Pelicans. I mean, Zach was Zach. I mean, you're going to have these kinds of performances. You kind of tame Zion a little bit, which that in itself is very hard to do. He had 29, but you did what you needed to do. Brandon Ingram, and had 21. So it's going to be. Look, I think that the performance of itself, performed their best game of the season. I think Zach and Coby White, they broke the record for most threes by a duo in one game. Which is astonishing to me if you think about it, because I know Clay and Steph had that record for a few years. Lonzo Ball, who has been the subject of trade talks, we talked about it on the show. He also had 21 points. But for the Bulls, Zach had 46, which was a season high for him. Coby White had 30. And also too, Valentine has 16. He's kind of been sort of back and forth from the starting lineup because of all the injuries. But look, that was a nice performance by the Bulls. 129 points is nothing to sneeze at in today's NBA. So, look, I mean, a solid performance. I didn't think they were going to win that game, I'll be honest. But
same here.
Excuse me, but this was sort of a nice surprise and a good performance. Look, I'm not going to give up on Coby White. Coby White's playing out of position. Do you get Coby White off the bench? There's been a lot of arguments on Bulls Twitter about what to do with Kobe, but look, I mean, this is why I don't want to give up on him. That performance he had, that's why I'm not giving up on Coby White. I'm not, and you're not going to make me.
I'm kind of with you on that boat, Lakeena. I don't think Coby White will be a starting point guard on this team. Maybe not during his duration, of which we hope that is a long NBA career, especially here in Chicago. Like you mentioned, he'll strike up performances like this, scoring 30 points, as you mentioned. I think maybe his days as a starting point guard is over. As I said before the season started, I didn't expect him to be John Stockton and lead the league in assists with 11 and 12 per game, but I still expect him to be a playmaker. But he is a scorer, and you saw what happened after a bad performance on Monday against the Wizards. He bounced back beautifully on Wednesday. You could tell with scorers, they are streaky, and they are streaky shooters. And we saw that from Coby White, hitting 8 of 17 for three-point land. And he also chipped in with 7 assists as well. These are the kind of numbers you want to see from Coby White. Like I said, he's not going to lead the team or the league in assists, but you can still be a playmaker and score a bunch of points per game. Look at Zach Lavine. As you mentioned, he had a season high of 46. And Zach Lavine also dropped 4 dimes and grabbed 7 rebounds as well. So you like to see an all-around game from your top players, and that's what we saw on Wednesday. Now, for the Bulls as a team, we talked about this before, Lakeena, during these last couple of episodes, basically the last couple of weeks during their losing streak. Their problem has been, from start to finish, playing consistently for 48 minutes. They got caught with their pants down against the Wizards on Monday, but they bounced back nicely from that against the Pelicans on Wednesday. Check this statistic out. For 36 assists, they made 48 field goals. So they had 36 assists off of 48 field goals. They're playing good team basketball, and they only committed 16 turnovers per game. And also check this statistic out. Guess how many points that the Bulls gave up in that third quarter?
I've already looked at it, so I'm not gonna,
I know you got your cheat sheet there.
I have my cheat sheet, but yeah.
They gave up 14 points, even though they gave up 116 overall for the game. I know they gave up 40 points in the second quarter as well, but you like the way that the Bulls bounced back. But let's see if they can continue this down the road, because as we mentioned, they play some tougher opponents. As we mentioned at the top, we'll review that Clippers game from Friday on our next episode, which will be released on Tuesday. And so as we mentioned in the previous episode as well, with the schedule getting tougher as we near the first half of this 72-game season, with the break coming up in about 2.5, 3 weeks. We're going to see how good this Bulls team is, even though they're dealing with injuries right now with Lauri Markkanen's shoulder, with the calf of Wendell Carter. Otto Porter Jr. is now down as well. It's not looking good, but the guys who are in there, they're going to have to step in and step up.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully we see this on a consistent basis, for the Bulls. And like you said, Sid, I mean, they the Bulls tend to have bad starts, but they get back, they put up that fight and from start to finish, and they're still learning how to do that. So they didn't have a very first quarter of some of these games, and you can't afford to do that against teams like the Clippers and looking through their schedule, leading up to the break. You play Indiana, they've been up and down. You get Charlotte, you got to go at Charlotte. You just won against them. Philly, that's probably going to be the first true test. We'll see where Philly is. You got Houston, you go at Houston too. Minnesota, unfortunately, of course, Carl Anthony Towns has been, has had COVID. It's just starting to get himself back into the groove of things. Boy, he's been through a lot. So this is past year. Phoenix too. That should be a fun one. I can't wait for that one. That's gonna be a lot of fun. They gotta go to Orlando, go to Tampa, I should say, and play Toronto. Then they get Denver on the 1st of March, and they gotta go at New Orleans to finish up that first half. So very winnable games, but also some very tough games too. So I think this won't be a litmus test for them. If they can just play like they've been playing, sort of keeping that fight up. I think if they can go about 500 in that scheduling, you gotta be you have to be pretty happy. You'll be satisfied if you're a Bulls fan.
Yeah, you'll have to be, and hopefully you'll get a couple of guys back by then. Lauri Markkanen will be back. I don't know about Wendell Carter. Hopefully he'll be back by the end of the break, or not. They'll start off the second half with both those guys in your lineup. Speaking of Lauri, Lakeena, I've been hearing a whole lot of talk that he may not be back with the Bulls next year. I don't think you can trade him now because I don't think he'll be eligible to come off the injuries by the time the trade deadline hits this year. And we all know that this new Bulls management they declined his option, his option for next season. So he basically becomes a free agent after this year. If you're the Bulls management right now, do you give Lauri Markkanen another chance, or do you wave bye-bye? Because his Bulls career has been up and down, to say the least, and it mostly is due because of injuries. If you're Mark Eversley, if you're Arturas Karnisovas, you have to be and we all know his option. If you're the Bulls management right now, has been up and down, to say the least. If you're Arturas has the talent, I think he does have the talent to stay in this league, but you cannot stay. Has him as fair or not is beyond me, but you're not tough enough.
It's you kind of messed up a little bit, Sid, but I got the gist of what you said. I think it's tough. I think it's tough to figure out because they've been kind of quiet, which is probably a good thing. I don't know what their mindset is, but I think maybe Lauri might be a better fit elsewhere because look, he's shown flashes, when he is healthy, but the problem is that he can't stay healthy, and that's been the problem. So I heard, speaking of our buddy Matt Peck, he always gets on this little tangent about, vegans and whatnot. I'm thinking that maybe he should start eating meat again. Maybe because he started having his issues. Maybe get some protein to get that, get some muscle. Maybe that might be the way for him to kind of get back on track here. But I mean, look, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. But if I were Eversley and AK, I mean, I think I might give him like a small deal, maybe a 1 year with a second year option to sort of kind of prove himself that he wants to be a part of this and be part of this building block that they're going to be part of this, this core that they're trying to build. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, another thing that will be interesting to see, and we've been talking about this for a while now, do you extend Zach LaVine And do you make him your franchise player? He's playing like it this year so far. He's been better at it than his previous couple years, due to various injuries, his issues with the previous coaching staff. Uh, Zach Lavine, he's playing like an all-star this year. We'll get to the all-star part in just a second, but if you're the new head brass for the Chicago Bulls, do you give the full boatload in terms of contract to Zach Lavine, saying to him, you are a superstar long-term? Do you think the Bulls will actually build a team around him and pair him up with another superstar eventually?
I think they will. I think if he keeps this up, I think they should. Because I know there's been the Zach Lavine, is probably one of the most polarizing, athletes here in Chicago right now. You got some, even probably even more polarizing than Mitch, because I think that it's not as even as you think with Mitch Trubisky, I mean. So I think it's a little bit more, divisive here in Chicago when it comes to Zach Lavine. You got the tangent that's like, hey, you know what? Look, let's build a team right. Let's just give him, a lot of money. Let's build around. But then you got, others who say, well, let's trade him out, while his stock is high, and let's try to get draft picks, and let's try to get like Kate Cunningham or somebody like that. So I mean, look, I think if you're trying, it all depends on if they're trying to compete, perhaps maybe in the next 2 or 3 years. I think maybe you probably may not have a choice but to probably perhaps maybe give him that contract, a hefty contract, maybe with lots of incentives, so that maybe you can leave that open to bring in another superstar, whoever that is. But if they're still trying to, figure out like what they're trying to do, I mean, they may let it leave. But if I had to pick right now, again, this could change as the season ends. But I think, I probably would build around him. I think, look, he's shown that, he wants to, and I think he wants to be here too. That's another like big thing. So I think that helps. So we'll see, but it's going to be very interesting. It's going to get very interesting down the road as all this develops.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Lakeena. I think they want to build around Zach. Zach has shown that he wants to be here. He loves the organization. He loves the city. He loves the fans. And so he's showing that throughout this year. Now, Lakeena, as we transition to the rest of the NBA, as you're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports with Lakeena McGee, I'm Sydney Brown. Let's tackle this All-Star Game issue quickly, Lakeena. It looks like it's going to be on March 7th. And during halftime of the All-Star Game, they're going to try and sneak in the slam dunk contest. I have one question. Why? Musa.
Yeah. Nicely done there. But look, I think we all feel that way, Sid. Like, what are you as ESPN's Taylor Twellman, who soccer analyst who hosts Sports Nation, you can listen on ESPN Plus. What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, why are they trying to do this? I mean, especially if you're going to do an dunk contest in the middle of the All-Star game, in the middle of the game itself. I just don't. What's going on here? I know. Look, if this is a money grab, look, there are other ways you can get the revenue. Okay.
It's all it is. I know they're supposed to proceeds supposed to go to HBCUs. I'm not knocking that. I don't care if it went to. I don't care if it goes to private schools or Catholic schools or grade schools. I don't care. That's a good cause. That's not the issue here. The issue is that TNT wants to get. They make their money outside of airing the games in the playoffs. It's the All-Star Game because they have exclusive rights. It's been that way since they got the All-Star Game exclusively back in 2003. By the way, that game was in Atlanta. Jordan's last All-Star Game, he got screwed, but that's a whole nother issue. But even though around this time, if we were back to normal, Lakeena, we'll be preparing for the All-Star Game in Indianapolis. Of course, they don't have it this year because of COVID. They're going to get their All-Star Weekend back in 2024. I'm like LeBron James, Lakeena, even though he's not going to get his way of not having an All-Star Game this year. I'm like LeBron James. You threw this at us at the last moment. We were told that you're not going to play. There weren't going to be any All-Star games this year. Athletes are creatures of habit, and when you're trying to break up their rhythm or break up their routine, it's going to go to hell in a handbasket. Now, for me as a diehard NBA guy first, even though I'm known for hockey, I'm a diehard NBA fan. This is the time you prepare for All-Star Weekend for everything. The three-point shootout to the dunk contest to the actual game to the youth challenge now. Used to be known as the rookie game from years ago. And of course, you guys remember, if you really know your history, it was the Legends game, which they stopped in the early 90s. But as far as this year, I was prepared, even though it sucked, I was prepared not to have an All-Star weekend. And now for the NBA, for them to do this at the last minute, let's just throw an All-Star game. Hopefully everything is well and dandy. We'll have strict protocols, even though players are traveling all around the country. I just hope that the NBA has its priorities and their P's and Q's straight, because just throwing it on in an event in the last minute, I don't get it. We get it from a business perspective, but this is it's a bad idea. I've been on it from the start. I was prepared not to have an All-Star game this year, Lakeena, even though how much it sucks from where we in as a society right now due to the pandemic. You know, things are getting back slowly. Mm-hmm. I'm okay for not having an All-Star weekend this year. I'm going to look at all All-Star weekends that I have on my DVD, and I'm going to go on YouTube and look at some stuff as well. I'm okay with them not having it this year. I'm okay with it. Even though in a normal year we'll be getting ready for the events. For this year, I'm okay with not having it.
Look, there are other ways.
I don't get it.
Look, there are other ways they can do this. I mean, look, have LeBron and Steph and the other players come in and do a round of Jeopardy. I mean, look, there are other, or some type of trivia type game, or basketball trivia or whatnot. Have like the legends, basketball legends share stories. Charles can go on for at least like 3 or 4 days. So look, there are other ways they can do this. There are other ways they can get the revenue. They can do some type of I know that horse thing that they did, ESPN did, was kind of a disaster a little bit. But look, there are other ways they can do this. They don't have to actually have a game, because if knock on wood, I'm knocking on my desk over here.
I can hear it.
Yeah, I mean, if God forbid, some of your top stars, has COVID, they get COVID because of this. And you know how Atlanta is. Atlanta is sort of like a hotbed for COVID. It's one of the hotbed cities. So I just don't understand why they feel like they have to do this. I mean, look, I know it's a revenue, thing for them, but there are other ways they can do it. They don't have to actually have a game and all that. Because if LeBron says that he's not going to play, I'm sure there are going to be other top tier players that are going to follow suit. Because you don't want to take any chances of these guys getting COVID. Look at Carl Anthony Towns. I mean, you mentioned earlier. I mean, he's been through so much, and he had a pretty bad case of COVID that was touch and go for a little bit. He lost his mom and many other family members. So COVID's no joke, folks. And now there are variants, various variants from the UK and South Africa. They just found one here in Illinois, for the South Africa variant. So look, I think they need to kind of take a step back and say, okay, you know what? Maybe this isn't a good idea.
I just don't get it. We all know that when it comes to professional sports, it involves money. But like I mentioned before, I'm okay without having an All-Star weekend this year. I'm okay with it. You get back to it next year when it's in Cleveland for 2022, and you go on from there. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. But the NBA is going to do what it wants to do, and we'll see what happens with that. Before we move on, go ahead.
It wouldn't surprise me though if they do cancel it. If guys like LeBron, we know how De'Aaron Fox feels. He was the first to say, "Look, this is stupid. This is a stupid idea." The guard for the Kings, for those of you who are wondering, this is stupid. He said it. It was stupid. So if more and more players come out and say, "Look, this is a dumb idea," the NBA may not have a choice but to sort of make other arrangements. But that's a whole nother thing. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we know that LeBron James is the face of the league. I know he's not the player of the president of the Players Association. That's Chris Paul. I know the director is Miss Michelle Roberts. But we all know that LeBron has a strong voice in the league. He's the face of the league, and a whole lot of players, including young players, especially follow him. So if you get more and more guys on his side, I don't know. Me personally, I don't know if he's going to get his way this time. I know in most situations he does get his way. I don't know about this time, but like you said, like more of your big stars like Paul George, Chris Paul, and some of the other top stars are falling in the line of LeBron James camp, that All-Star game will not take place. But we'll see what happens. You still have a few weeks left, and so we'll see what happens there. Now, another big issue in the NBA this week before we go back to breaking down some of the best games of this past week. Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, he's no stranger to controversy, folks. And during their 13 home games so far this year, they have not played the national anthem not once. No one has known about this issue till a reporter brought it up the other night. And now the NBA came out the other day and said that all teams must play the national anthem because they're in other cities, they're trying to bring fans back. We all know that in some cities like Atlanta, Memphis, Utah, Salt Lake City, Miami as well, I think Cleveland as well, they had a limited amount of fans. Orlando as well has limited amount of fans to this point so far this season. Lakeena, I know what the NBA did is a players' league. They led the protest, especially what the Milwaukee Bucks did in the middle of their playoff run last year. They shut down the league for one day with all the other sports, with baseball and hockey to follow. They followed in the footsteps for that one day as well due to that shooting. Forget the person's name in Wisconsin. I know the players were allowed to express themselves openly and freely, criticism or no criticism during the bubble. We're living in a new time now, Lakeena. I think the NBA, the reason why they did this because they don't want any more controversy. This is a policy. We're trying to bring fans back. We don't want any more ill will. What happened in the bubble, it stays there. We're trying to turn a new page. So everybody should join in. Everybody is mandated to play the national anthem. We don't want to get caught up in the politics anymore of controversy. This is what it is, and we'll just move forward. Do you think it's going to be that simple, or do you think we're going to get some more pushback?
I think there's going to be a little bit of pushback. Maybe not as, maybe not as big as it was perhaps maybe this had happened a year ago with everything that happened, but there's probably going to be some resistance and some hesitation. And I'm bringing up Taylor Twellman again. He said himself that, look, the NBA is one of the few, American sports is one of the few domestically, they're one of the, no one else in Europe plays their national anthem. I mean, I don't see, like in the Premier League, they don't play God Save the Queen and then before their matches. So it's sort of weird that it only happens here. And, I think that there is going to be some pushback. I think at some point, I know they don't want to ruffle any feathers, especially when they do start letting fans back in. But again, this is going to be something they're going to have to figure out because there's going to be some pushback for some folks. And I think this is something they're going to have to sort of, iron out because just to say that, well, we've been doing this for years, this is a blanket policy, that's not going to fly anymore, especially when you hear the meaning of the anthem itself. So I just think that there's just going to be something that they're going to have to figure out because there is going to be a pushback, no doubt. And if you don't want to do a kneeling situation or if you keep, look, back, not to bring up NFL, but back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, when the anthem was played, both teams stayed in the locker room.
Yeah.
No one was out on the sideline. So yeah, they did it for the Super Bowl and whatnot because that's just how that was a tradition too. But if you want to avoid that, I think it may have to perhaps maybe come into a sort of a decision in that sense. But what do you think?
If the NBA could do something like that and not have their players out for the national anthem, it's okay. But like you said, they're gonna have to have some discussions coming to meeting of the minds. I understand they don't want any more controversy as it is because of especially what we're going through, even though things are starting to get back, but slowly. There's no easy answers here. If I did have one, I would give it, but I don't have any answers. So those folks higher ups in the NBA get paid big dollars, so they're going to have to find some answers for this. Like you said, I don't know how big it's going to get. We don't know, but hopefully it doesn't get any bigger. But they're going to have to find some answers to at least come to a medium about this.
There's got to be a happy medium here. There has to be. We'll see.
All right, let's get back to the action on the court. Lakeena, what impressed you about the games that you watched from the association from this past week?
There were a lot of good games. Over the past week. I saw the Atlanta Dallas game from Wednesday. I mean, that was a big game. Kind of a controversial ending too, but we won't get into that. But that was a nice showing by Dallas. Dallas needed that win, and they're sort of kind of slowly kind of creeping back up. Portland's looked really good. I mean, we're starting to see Carmelo from his first few years in the NBA. He's looked really good in Portland.
Yeah.
With all their injury issues. I mean, they've been on a roll lately. So you got to give Portland their props.
Not to interrupt you real quick, Lakeena. Going back to that Portland game on Thursday. That was an impressive performance against Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is currently on their West Coast trip. Carmelo taking it back to the old school in his Denver days and his early Knicks days, 17 points in the fourth quarter. I know Gary Trent had a nice game as well with 5 for 7 for three-point land as Portland defeated Philadelphia. Now, that was a good performance by Carmelo. Until C.J. McCollum gets back, can Portland find that consistent help to go with Damian Lillard? That's been their problem over the last few years. Who's going to be their third guy?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's like I've been saying, they put play very well the last week, a week and a half. Utah, they've won 5 in a row. I mean, what more can you say about Utah? But I think we just want to say, let's do it in the playoffs, Utah. I think that's where we're at with them right now. The Lakers have won 6 in a row. I mean, that they kind of show. I know that AD's was out the last couple of days with Achilles injury. Nothing serious, but I guess they want to be cautious and keep him at rest. But that Wednesday night comeback against OKC when they came back in OT. I mean, that LeBron has played every game so far, so you got to commend him for that and still playing at a high level consistently. I mean, look, I know we're not going to talk about MVPs yet, but he's been, of course, phenomenal as LeBron usually is. So that's been a nice deterrent there. I've been very impressed with their performance. Our girl Alana Tuckheyer, I'm sure she's super happy about her Heat. They've won 4 in a row. I mean, I was talking to her about it last night. Oh yeah, she is super excited. Got a nice win, a big win against Houston last night. I think having Jimmy Butler back healthy, I think that's definitely helped. He had 27. Duncan Robinson had 15. Kendrick Nunn had 16. So a nice showing there. Oh, and also Haslam. 20. No, I should say that wasn't Max Strauss had. The former DePaul guy, remember, if DePaul fans might remember that name. He had 21, so he had 21 off the bench. So that was an impressive performance there by the Heat, and they've looked really good. So, like I said, the Heat have been pretty impressive too this last week. So, what about you? Who's impressed you so far?
Besides the Bulls win on Wednesday against the Pelicans, the Los Angeles Lakers, 3 straight overtime games against 2 bad teams. Now, Oklahoma City, it's not as bad as people think. We said that last year, of course, they had Chris Paul. But against sub-500 teams, the 3 overtime games in a row, you won all 3 of those games. As you mentioned, Lakeena, Anthony Davis, I think they will set him out so he's completely healthy to play. That's what you should do at this point. It's about the playoffs, not about this shortened 72-game season. Number 2, LeBron James playing 40 minutes for 3 straight games. I know he's, like you mentioned, he's played every game this year. Is there something to worry about? Yes, but with Anthony Davis being down, if you want LeBron's minutes to be down, other players are going to have to step up. I know Alex Caruso has missed the last couple of games. He was been on the bench for rest. So I know there's 1 or 2 other guys that's been out of action as well. But there's other guys on the floor like Kuzma. He's been doing all right. Wes Matthews starting to find himself within the rotation. So Maurice Morris, number 88, he's been playing well these last couple of games. So I watched the 2 games against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was more about those role players. Yes, LeBron James came through and saved the day in those 2 victories, but it's those role players, especially now with AD being out for a while, they're going to have to step up big time.
Right, especially I'm sure once the second half starts, I'm sure LeBron's going to be taking a couple of games here and there because remember he's
Yes.
36. He's 36, kids. So
Yes.
as he's been, I'm sure he's going to want to save his injury for the playoff. His energy for the playoffs. So I don't think he wants to kind of overexert himself.
Yes. Quickly, let's take a look at some of the highlight games for this upcoming weekend for Saturday and Sunday for Valentine's Day weekend. Let's start out with the games for Saturday, Lakeena, at 2 o'clock on NBA TV. This is Central Standard Time. You'll have the Philadelphia 76ers continuing their West Coast road trip as they will face the Phoenix Suns. At 6:30, you'll have the Pacers and the Hawks. 7:30 on ABC, Kevin Durant will make his return as the Brooklyn Nets will travel to San Francisco to take on the Golden State Warriors. And this is for our good friend Alana Techhauer at 8 o'clock, which is the late game. The Miami Heat will travel to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Jazz.
No, that should be a really good one. That should be very intriguing. Jimmy Butler versus Donovan Mitchell. That should be a fun one there. And also, I'm looking forward to the Brooklyn Golden State game because, like you said, Sid, Kevin Durant got he got the clearance, so he can play again. So that's gonna be that'll be a very interesting game as well. To Sunday we go. A couple of special Valentine's Day Sunday editions on ESPN. The first one, you got Portland and Dallas. Dallas has won 3 in a row. We've mentioned Portland is having their hot streak right now too. So who's got to get Luka versus Damian? That should be a fun one. That should be a lot of fun there. Also, you got the nightcap of that one. You'll have the Lakers and the Nuggets, so that should be a fun one too.
I'm looking forward to that one.
That should be a lot of fun. Also, Memphis and Sacramento should be another good one.
This should be fun as well. Also, one more game that no one's paying attention to for Sunday. This will take place at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The San Antonio Spurs against the Charlotte Hornets. Gordon Hayward versus DeMar DeRozan, but watch out for that rookie, Mr. LaMelo Ball for the Charlotte Hornets. As I told you, Lakeena, a couple of weeks ago, he's becoming one of those young favorite players that I like to watch. And Charlotte, if you pay attention to them, they're one of the young teams coming up. They're very exciting to watch. So I can't wait to watch this one on Sunday.
That should be a fun one too. I'm really looking forward to that one. A couple of ones for Monday. I'm looking forward to Brooklyn and Sacramento. That should be an intriguing one there. That's a 9 o'clocker. Also, to another one for our girl Lana, Miami and the Clippers. That's the NBA TV game. So that should be a fun one too.
Yeah, especially like you said, the Miami and the Clippers. Of course, the Clippers have been one of the top teams in the NBA this season. Controversy has been zero, which is good. They've actually been playing basketball. The Miami Heat trying to get back into that playoff race as of this recording. They're 3 games under 500. So they got a tough stretch. They have Utah, as we mentioned, on Saturday on the road, and of course they're the Clippers on Monday.
Yeah, that should be a fun one. A nice fun slate of NBA games this weekend. So enjoy the games, everybody.
Yes. Now let's switch off to the college basketball, as we'll start with locally first. As of this recording, the Illini would have played their game against the Nebraska Cornhuskers on the road. We'll break down that game for you in our next podcast, which will be released on Tuesday. So once again, the Illini would have played their game already at Nebraska. We're assuming that it's a win, hopefully, but we'll break down that game nevertheless on Tuesday's podcast. Now, another local team in college basketball is trying to make their way into the tournament. The number 22 ranked Loyola Ramblers from Chicago's North Side. Lakeena, I've been saying this for the last couple of episodes. They will be at Drake this weekend in the state of Iowa, both Saturday and Sunday. Both games can be seen on ESPN2. I believe the Saturday game will be at 11 o'clock. The Sunday game will be at 2 p.m. So Cameron Cutwig, their big guy for the Ramblers, he's been their leading scorer all year. As I said, as I'm trying to say as well, these two teams are at the top of the conference of the Missouri Valley. If you're Loyola, you must come out of there no worse than a split. It'll be great to sweep the sweep the season series, but realistically, you got to come out with at least a split.
And for those of you who are wondering why they're playing 2 games, because of the way the Missouri Valley, the way they did it, they're having their teams play 2 gamers to limit the travel, of course, because of COVID. So that's why I'm sure people are wondering, like, why are they playing 2 games back to back? That's how That's how they've been doing. They've been doing it since conference play started. So relax there. But look, I love Cameron Cudwick. I mean, they did a nice little feature. I forgot. I don't know if it was the Sun Times or the Trib. They did a really nice feature on him. He's the sort of leader in the clubhouse for conference player of the year. He leads the team in both points and rebounds. He's a really big guy, but he also shoot it from the 3 too, which is totally impressive.
Yeah.
He kind of sort of like leading the charge of that Ramblers team. That should be a really good one there, because remember, Drake. This was a Drake. They're going to be facing a Drake team that was picked to finish last in their conference. So the fact that they're even 19-1 is incredible.
Yeah.
So that should be a lot of fun for the Missouri Valley. I'm glad they're getting their due on national television.
Yes.
It should be really good. Hopefully everyone in Chicago will have a chance to watch both the games.
Yes. There'll be an ESPN 2, as I mentioned this weekend. Saturday's game at 11 o'clock in the morning. Sunday's game at 2 p.m., both on ESPN 2. Also, Loyola's on a 10-game winning streak, so let's see if they can keep good times rolling. As I said, I predict they'll have a split. If you come out there with 2 losses, you're really in trouble. So you got to take care of your own business there.
And
what are the big games that – Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say I'm thinking that that's probably what's gonna happen too, because these teams are kind of like they both got big guys and they both got good point guards, so they're both evenly matched, I think. So this should be mostly thrilling. I'm gonna say the Big Ten, the Saturday slate tomorrow, Indiana and number 4 Ohio State. Ohio State, a lot, there's some of the bracketologies, if you will, are saying that Ohio State could get that last number 1 seed. But Indiana, they need something to, freshen up that tourney resume. They beat Iowa last week. I think having a win against Ohio State, number 4 ranked Ohio State team, especially in Columbus, that should definitely help them with their tourney resume. In the Big 12, you got OU and West Virginia. That should be a fun one there. TCU and Texas, another good one. In the Tennessee, LSU in the SEC. I mean, Iowa and Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State needs to, get their resume going too. They haven't been playing very well. Also,
both those teams need to get back on track. I know Iowa's ranked number 15, but as I mentioned in our last episode, they lost their last 2 games. They need to definitely get back on track.
Yeah, they do. They definitely been falling off a little bit lately. Arkansas and Missouri. Arkansas could definitely use some extra wins to freshen up their resume too. Duke and NC State. That's a much needed win for Duke because they're under 500 right now. Northwestern plays Rutgers.
Ron Harbert Jr.
yeah, right. So so that should be an interesting one there. Also, too, in the Big East, you got Villanova and Creighton. That's a big one there. Probably the battle to control their own destiny in the Big East.
Yeah.
Also, North Carolina and Virginia. That should be a fun one there. Also, USC and Washington State. That should be another fun one too in the Pac-12.
Yeah, let's see if West Coast basketball will get its due in prime time.
I hope so. It's going to be on ESPNU on Saturday. So tomorrow, I should say. So that's a good one there. So any other games, over this weekend that has you fired up?
I'm cruising through Sunday's schedule. I know there's a big game on CBS. This is for Sunday now. Number 3, Michigan, assuming that everything's okay with their program. Of course, as we mentioned in our last episode, that their game from this past Thursday against Illinois has been postponed due to Michigan's COVID issues. Assuming that everything goes well as of this broadcast, number 3, Michigan will travel to the Kohl Center in Madison to face the number 21 ranked Wisconsin Badgers. That game should be fun. We'll see how Michigan will come out and play with a big conference game on the road. They haven't played in 2.5 weeks, so it's going to be interesting to see how Juwan Howard's squad get off to a hot start. Can they, not playing for the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they look because, like you said, so they haven't played in 2.5 weeks. So, you may see a little bit of rust, but we'll see what they do. I mean, look, I know the women's team played last night, so I'm sure everything's good to go there. Minnesota and Maryland in the Big Ten. Maryland needs this win to kind of freshen up that tourney resume.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Drake and Loyola, Illinois, the battle of Illinois State and Southern Illinois. That's always a nice, for the, because we got good friends who went to both these schools. So, that I'm sure for bragging rights purposes. Unfortunately, Memphis and Houston, for those of you who are hoping to see that game, that's been postponed because apparently now Memphis is starting to have COVID issues. So that game's been postponed. So, COVID still is wreaking havoc in some spots still.
Also, another game for fans to look forward to late Sunday night at 5 o'clock on the ACC network. University of Miami traveling to South Bend to take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Both teams are trying to fight for respect and get back to it in the race in the ACC.
Yeah, that should be a fun one there. And I think Miami definitely needs it to help. They got to keep waiting to help out with their tourney resume. So yeah, so some really good games. We got weeks. We only got like about 4 or 5 weeks till Selection Sunday. They've released their schedule.
Yeah.
They released their schedule of how the TV aspect's going to be. So that, if this is the time to get caught up in college hoops, guys, because this is going to be sort of everything's going to, COVID or not, this is going to be things start kicking into gear, because there have been some cancellations and postponements. And I think, who was it? It was one of the MEAC teams, I think, that said they're going to forfeit the rest of their season because of COVID. So we'll see if even more teams do that, but we'll see what happens there.
Also, too, one more quick announcement. It was announced earlier this week. The men's Big Ten basketball championship, the Big Ten tournament that was supposed to take place here in Chicago this year, is moved to Indianapolis. We'll get it back in 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Lakeena, let's.
Oh no, I just want to mention that. Yeah, it's a bummer, but again, of course, with the tournament being in Indianapolis this year, I figured, they figured like, okay, why not just have the Big Ten tournament there too? And I'm sure they're going to try to limit the traveling too. So, guys are probably going to have to sort of pack up maybe like 2 or 3 weeks worth of stuff. So that's going to be, and plus I'm sure they're going to have people there too. So I mean, that's another reason why they took it this year.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Lakeena, we're running out of time. We got a couple minutes left. Let's do that hockey.
Let's do that
at least locally anyway. The Chicago Blackhawks, they took it on the chin on Thursday against the Columbus Blue Jackets 6-4. Patrick Kane scores another goal. I know they're 6-5-4 right now. They're 6-5-4. Of course, this weekend they'll play. Yeah, they'll play the Columbus Blue Jackets again on Saturday night before they head out on a 6-game road trip, which takes them through Thursday, February 25th. After Saturday's game against Columbus here in Chicago, they'll go for a 6-game road trip against 3 opponents. That's the Detroit Dead Wings. That's right, I said it. The Carolina Hurricanes and, again, the Columbus Blue Jackets. The reason why those opponents are in front of the Hawks because they're in a new division for this season for 2021. Lakeena, I'm not going to give Kevin Lankinen the whip because all goalies have their bad stretches. Yeah. I know the Hawks had a bad third period on Thursday. They got away with it in their last game over the weekend against the Dallas Stars. They won both their games on Sunday and Tuesday 2-1 in overtime. But it's all about consistency for the Blackhawks. There was a bad third period, as I mentioned, on Thursday. I think this team is still okay. I keep thinking and hoping and wondering what this team would be like with Jonathan Taves. Now, the Hawks are still dealing with injuries and issues. I know Alex DeBrincat came off the COVID list last week. I know that Adam Boquist is off the list now, but they're dealing with injuries with Connor Murphy and Andrew Shaw, who's been placed on IR because of concussion. Of course, you guys remember he missed the majority of last season from December on because he had a concussion. So as we've learned throughout pro sports, especially in the game of hockey, concussions is one thing you do not want to mess with.
Absolutely, especially in a sport like hockey too, where it's just the hits that they take. But look, I mean, I'm just glad that they're competent. The Hawks are. I mean, I was expecting.
Yeah. Look, I told you they weren't going to be the worst team in the league.
You did.
That's Detroit.
You did. I commend you for that. I mean, I just the competence and whatnot. DeBrincat, had a goal last night. I mean,
Mhm.
I think, look, I guess they're buying into what, Jeremy Collinson is saying. I know people say he's not the
Yeah.
most, the most like, charismatic guy or whatever, but, look, Cater said himself that they're buying into what he's saying, and it's been working. So they're fourth
Hmm.
for the Central Division right now. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that they're a playoff team, but look, I think if they're showing that fight and that competence and that confidence, I think, just imagine, I always feel like you said, Sid, if I can imagine if Taves was there, would we be at the top? Would the Hawks
Hmm.
just say be at the top of the division right now? But but look, as long as they keep playing this way, I think you're gonna get that
Hmm.
excitement from them. So I'm excited. Well, we'll see if they can bounce back with them, get their revenge, get the Blue Jackets tomorrow night.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. They just got like the Bulls. They just had to stay consistent from start to finish. If they can do that, they'll give themselves the best chance to win. Are they overachieving a little bit? Perhaps, as we mentioned, all the obstacles they have. But so far, you give Jeremy Carson a B plus, maybe an A minus. It might not be silly to say that, but given all the issues we just mentioned, you can give him a B plus or A minus.
Yeah,
I know some
I'm
fans don't want to hear that, but
yeah,
you
yeah.
have to be fair right now.
Yeah, you do. They're buying to what he's saying right now. So you got to give him props for that. Apparently there is a lot of COVID issues in hockey. Both the Devils, especially, and the Flyers, and the Capitals, and the Sabres, and I believe the Wild too. I mean, all of them have had games postponed. Or New Jersey and Philly was supposed to play tomorrow, but that was postponed due to the COVID issues. Both teams are having.
Hmm.
Minnesota and the Kings have been postponed due to COVID issues with the King. I mean, with the Wild, I should say. We talked about the
Hmm.
Capitals and their issues, so it's just been do you think that maybe that that NHL may have to consider maybe going on a bubble, sort of?
I don't know what else they can do. They're going to follow their big brother, the NBA, and what the NFL did this past season is just power through this thing. Those games that have been postponed, they're going to have to be made up at some point. Heaven forbid something major happens, but they just have to make those games up before the playoffs start, and you just have to power through this thing.
It's a couple of good ones there too. You got Montreal and Toronto. That's always fun when those two teams battle it out. Also Tampa and the Panthers. That should be a good one too. This weekend. So some good ones here. Ottawa and Winnipeg, they play each other this weekend. That should be a good one. I'm trying to think. Does NBC have a game of the week coming up on Sunday, Sid, or no?
Yes, they do. I'll try to find it real quick. Yeah, because it's at 2 o'clock our time. I'll find it in just a moment. But yeah, you'll start to see some games on Sunday afternoon on NBC. And the game of the week will be over the Peacock Network. This is Sunday at 2 o'clock. Washington at Pittsburgh.
Hopefully Washington will have all their COVID issues would have
Hmm.
passed already. So hopefully that game could get through. So yeah, some good ones in hockey, but also like we say, they're having COVID issues too. So all right. So what are you looking forward to this weekend, real quick?
The Loyola Ramblers in college basketball locally here. Let's hope they can win both those games. But as I said before, they can do no worse than a split against Drake. Drake is a good team. I know they lost their first game last weekend, but that team will be focused. So Loyola will have to come and bring it. So I'm looking forward to those two games, and also looking forward to that Saturday night slate of games for the NBA.
The weekend games in the NBA for me, as well as all those college hoops games. Like I said before, guys, is the time to get into college hoops. So start learning some of these teams and
Mm-hmm.
some of the names and some of the teams that are probably going to be fighting for those bubble spots. Also,
Yep,
too,
no more football. It's over.
well, unless you're an FCS football fan, because they actually start their play tomorrow, I believe. Yeah. So if there is football, but if you're like a 1AA FCS sort of, the Delawares and teams like that, the North Dakota States, those type of teams. So if you're into those, if those are some of your favorite teams, like if you have you want a football fix, they have in like in various spots, around the streaming platform. So there is football, folks. If those of you are going to be
Yep.
ready for football. On that note, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidK80. Once again, at SidK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. You go to our website, weareregalradio.com for more information. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. You can listen to this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from War Media by simply typing in War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box wherever you download your podcast, War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media, once again at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. And we appreciate your support in advance. We are unapologetically fun.
Yes, we are.
Mwah! We love you all.
Yes, we are. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And be careful out there, folks. Just keep your mask on, wash your hands, keep distant, and also stay warm too, because we're actually going to have another big snowstorm this weekend, and the cold's coming too. So welcome to mid-February, I guess, here in Chicago. But for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you next week.
Till next time, holla!